so we're going to start. As a reminder, the mics need to be turned on so that the video can hear you.
All right.
All right, and we'll get started. If you didn't see your email today, there was incredible news about Log College, which is just fantastic. It's one of the top 2025 best middle school list. Awesome. Log College appeared on it. So out of 875 schools ranked in the report, Log College was ranked number 306, which is fantastic. Yet again, more great news and great work being done. So that is good to hear. Peggy, do you want to announce a roll call?
Very short roll call. Mr. Addison?
Present.
Mr. Hartline?
Present.
Thank you.
Mr. Martin is not here at the moment. Okay. Approval of the minutes from our 2024 meeting. Any comments, any feedback?
Nope. No. So moved. I'll second.
Okay. Then we will, I forgot the agenda. Any issues with the agenda? So.
No, sir.
Didn't see that either, so.
Nope.
You know.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right. All right. Peggy, Vera, and I have been tied up all morning talking about numbers. So if our heads are a little shaky, if we look like we're a little overloaded, pardon me. So to get started, we have our presentation slides here, our agenda, and our financial update. So as we talked about at our meeting in October, right, the report formats are different coming out of cumulative. So this most recent reports that were shared Tuesday with the board, we're now dumping them into Excel and doing sort of the math in Excel because it shows revenue as a credit, which in a good accountant says yes, but it makes for odd presentation. So we're just dumping the one out and we're showing it this way. So at the end of our year-to-date, fiscal year-to-date revenue is $101,026. 101 million, 026. Thank you. I told you the numbers. It's been a long morning.
I get that.
I appreciate it. We have expenses of year-to-date of $28,530,000. To look at them sort of in a summary, and then we'll look at them in a little deeper view. Revenue, as of October, we've realized 80% of the budgeted local revenue, 35% of the budgeted state revenue, and 79% of the budgeted federal revenue. That bump on the federal side is, if you recall, when we were going through the budget, we had submitted for an access reimbursement grant, right? And that came in October, which is a big number for that. After that, the federal money really begins to shrink. So that was good news. Total, we've collected about $8.8 million in revenue. State. Yes.
What is in local revenue? Is it just real estate or how much?
It is everything local, right? So it is real estate tax, it is
So the
the Act
1%
511
tax, that 0.5%
taxes,
taxes.
it's all of those taxes, right?
Transfers,
That's why
all that.
it's only 80%.
Correct, exactly. So of that, of the taxes levied and assessed, which is real estate taxes plus those 511 taxes, we are up approximately almost a percentage point, $632,000 compared to this point last year. But as we talked about and not warned, but we talked about during the budget, right? Our interest revenue is down 38% from this time last year, right? Which is $425,000. So interest revenue was over $1 million last year at this time, and is $682,000 now, right? Okay, so that's a big drop off, right? We've been fortunate over the past several years to have excessive gains. As the markets change, as the Fed drives the interest rate lower, that is going to shrink the gains that the district was able to get. We're still working to try to maximize them, but that is a foreshadowing of what is to come.
Okay, and we, in looking at our liquid asset funds, there's some of them you already have pushed out for several months as well. So I've
We
noticed,
do,
like,
we
you know,
do, yep,
you're-
yep.
yeah.
And you'll see those are on the treasurer's report that's included with the board documents from Tuesday. But yes, we do sort of allocate those over a period of time.
It's like
I
a
think we've
laddered
got to
fund.
try to look to extend more of them and see if we can't find higher rates on a longer term. I think that'll be our next evaluation. But I think right now we are allocating them well over a period of time. The market's a little goofy on the long end because no one's sure what's going to happen, right? So if you
Exactly.
you can get 4.5 now, but if you keep it a year, you can get 2.5. Well, it's a little sideways.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on the revenue numbers?
Where are we looking, what are your estimated for interest revenue or investment revenue for the entire year? What is your anticipated at this point, knowing what we have in right now?
Yep. So our budget included $225,000.
Right.
Right, so if you're at 225 and we're 682, some quick math says that you know, if you held, you'd be close to that number.
So we're
Right.
kind of on target.
Right, because that, you know, if you took, October's a little more than a quarter, right?
Right.
So it's, you know, actually 3, so if you took 682 times 3, that'd be 2 million, so you'd be
A little shy.
200 short
Okay.
right now if everything held. That's a great question. Thank you. Okay. On the expense side, through 3 months, we've expended almost 20% of the planned expenses, and expenses are generally in line with the historical trends that we've had in the past. Okay, so we're $100,000 off of same point last year. All right. We will work to bring back the Forecast 5 analytics. We've just been sort of tied up between the rollout of cumulative. Veer's working triple time trying to come up with reports, which has been fantastic, while we're also working to sort of close the financials and bridge that gap. But we will return to them. On the budget side, this is, you know, we sort of talked about this last week. The Act 1 index is 4%. Based on the current real estate values, 4% is worth $3.6 million. 8% is worth about $900,000, just as we keep those things in mind. The IU reconciliation, which will be a part of the next year's budget.
Is that the amount that was anticipated to?
It was not. We anticipated a much larger number, as we
Okay,
talked
so
about
this is
last week,
actually
right? What's
looking
that?
more in our favor than,
Yes, right, it was,
Okay.
and we're not
Yeah.
impacted by it. This is the last year you won't sort of be impacted. This will carry over into the next budget year, the 25. If we have a variance this year, we're gonna have to swallow it in the financials this year. So you sort of have that double hit, and that's what we talked about, if you recall, during the budget, that we wanted to reserve, not quote accrue, but reserve fund balance to cover that deficit. Okay. CEA's contract is change is worth about an initial $2.5 million. That's close to 3% by itself. And we're working on the open enrollment piece. Some preliminary numbers come out, and we'll be able to share those soon. I think that was a positive savings. I think the changes that we put in place were all positives. I think it you know, despite what people may believe or not, people do take those things into account. And people made a choice because we made choice a real option. When the choice between Plan A and Plan B was only nickels, right? You really you didn't have a choice. Some people saved the nickels, and others didn't, but it wasn't as clear. So we tried to clearly separate, have a core plan and have a high-cost plan and a low-cost plan. And we have participation in all of those plans.
And that closed November 1st?
It did.
Okay.
It did. These are the dates that we showed last month. The big difference this year from last year is the opt-out resolution. You recall that was almost a December timeframe because of the presidential election. The presidential election is not in place. It falls back to the 30th, just based on dates ahead of the primary. So that is a big change that we have. And what this shows is sort of another schedule. It really tries to consolidate the much larger Act 1 schedule that we get. This is what we have shared every year for the past 5 in terms of the building blocks to move forward with the budget. We have proposed on here 2 budget work sessions, one at the end of January, one at the end of February. If you guys, gentlemen, have any feedback with regard to those work sessions, we can, the dates are certainly flexible should we have them, but I want to put them on the calendar and we'll seek approval or confirmation at our meeting next on the 28th, so a week and a half from now. Okay. The target for budget approval is June 10th, which is the first board meeting in June, and hopefully we get there and are able to move forward. Any questions on the budget, the timing?
No, just hoping it will go a little smoother this year.
Hope so. I'm with you. As Mr. Hartline requested, sort of an update on capital, sort of as a refresher. This is our capital budget slides that were shared in the capital approval process. The total expected expenditures or forecasted expenditures for this year is $2.9 million. That can be found here, and then it's detailed on the right in the green box, right? And we anticipate moving $2 million from the debt service fund to the capital fund to fund these projects, right? And that's an important thing that we keep in mind, particularly during budget seasons, right, as we move forward. This just shows a glimpse of part of our treasury reports that we report regularly. This is the capital fund piece of that. So we have the revenue and we have the expenses. So spent to date, if you were looking, it's shared as a part of that treasury report. We've spent $739,000 on a host of projects. And more important, and we'll have to look at it, and I think I was talking with Vera this morning about it, is when we look at these, we're going to maybe change how it's being presented, because these are cashed expenses, right? But we've made significantly more commitments or encumbrances to the budget, right? So when we look at them, it's a bit of a different picture, right? So you can see this shows that same chart. It shows the budgeted amount. It shows the amount expensed, the $739,000. That means those are expenses that have been paid for and are done. And then it shows encumbered balances as well, right? For those are things that we have committed to, but we haven't yet spent the money for them. So for as an example, buses, right? We ordered 3 buses. Those buses have yet to arrive. They're due to arrive in December, in January, but the $394,000 is committed, okay? The $299,000 was for the vans that we purchased. We saw Dr. Benton shared another great message from a community member on those vans, and I think those, as we have seen, really were a good investment, certainly for the special education students who just by default need more space, and particularly the aides who are standing up in those buses more so.
Well,
So-
I guess it also makes sense because some of these special ed students are being formed outside of the district, and you
Yep.
don't need an 80 or 50 passenger
No,
bus
for
to
sure,
transport
for
3 or 4
sure.
kids.
But I
The
think,
savings on mileage and.
absolutely, and I really think, what shocked me when we got those vans, and I had underestimated it, is the height in those vans, right? And if you are in charge of 3 or 4 students that have special needs and are sitting in harnesses, and you're trying to reach over them and support them and help them in a van that you can't really stand, so you're already bent over, it really would have been a difficult work environment. So I think those are fantastic. So those are the pieces that we have in place. The parking lot at Klinger Middle School was done and paid. We've used, $36,000 of the contingency funds. You can see what those items have been identified. A lot of college softball fields were done. The Davis handicap walkway was completed. The baseball, the high school outfield fence is being done right now. And we had a Siemens part of our HVAC work done. Was the tail end of that project, expense and charge that came through it. Other than that, we talked about the transportation section. On the technology side, right, we've used almost that entire budget, short of $33,000, either used or committed, I should say. So that leaves us today with $962,000 in the capital plan. We've talked about the FCS classrooms. We have to really organize ourselves and develop a plan to address those. I know Jim Wertman is working on the tennis courts. We have an RFP that we'll that we will send out and issue, and hope to have those tennis courts addressed in the tail end of March, which will have some overlap with the courts. I think we will need a week to complete that project, is what the RFP is asking for. So we
Is
will
that
see
a
where that
total
goes.
redo of the tennis courts, or?
It is not. It's sort of taking off of the top and improving the patching work that was done and then recovering it,
Are they going
resealing
to
it.
take,
Yes.
for instance, the first 2 inches off and then?
I think they're gonna
redo
fill,
that?
I think they're gonna dig out and fill in the crack areas and repack it.
Yeah.
And then seal the whole thing. I don't think
Kinda
they're
like a
gonna take
milling.
the whole court down. Unlike a parking lot, you would think of doing that. That it was an option. I don't know if that was the option. Hopefully the RFP gives us 2 options, a base, as we've done in all other cases, and an
Will
alternative.
this be like a surface similar to what is on the track then?
No, it's a tennis court surface, right? So
Yeah,
it's an
but I know,
asphalt
but it's-
surface, right? That
But it's a
track,
texture.
the track is
the
a rubber,
texture I was
a
looking for.
rubberized
Okay, yeah.
surface. This
That's
is
what I
a flat asphalt surface painted as a tennis court. Okay?
I imagine that's probably weather contingent too. the work
It
on
is,
that.
it is, and that's, I was, funny things that wake you up in the middle of the night, I thought of that a couple of weeks ago. I sat up in bed, I'm like, what about the tennis courts? I hadn't talked to Jim about them recently, so he gave me the update, and I know he was, always on top of these things, so I know it was moving. I just hadn't heard about it, and knew that, depending, if we keep our summer like winter going on, right? And it stays 65, we should be glorious when it comes time to fix that. If we get the deep cold, that could impact the timing for sure. Okay? Any other questions on the current capital plan?
No, thank you. Oh, have the IT equipment, has that been ordered already, or, because it's under encumbrance?
It is.
Is there
It
a
has
bid
been.
process?
Yep,
Was
yep.
that bidded, or,
Yes, we did. I think
bid.
those came through the board and were approved.
I didn't remember.
Yep.
Wonderful.
And just as a reminder, right, sort of the 5-year plan is we always got to try to keep looking into the future, right? This plan continues the process of transferring money out of our either the debt service fund or another fund to fund our capital improvements. That's what we have. It's either got to come from the debt service fund, it can come from the general fund if we had a surplus. But that planning is essential. And I think it's important to realize that we're now sort of entering the maintenance window, right? With our schools in that 15 to 20 year age, as we look out over our budgeting cycle, which we try to do for 5 years, HVAC, roofs, various building systems will need to be replaced or updated. That is a process. You guys are near and dear with MBIT that was never done, right? And they were left with a major cost that we all had to chip in and cover. So I think it's important that we understand that and that we plan accordingly, right? It's really a part of that 5-year plan. Excuse me?
Are we pursuing any grants like we did at MBIT to?
We
some of these
keep our
items?
eye out for them, right? We have had, not a lot of luck in getting them, right? I think the tech schools, I think they have a little bit of an edge on us, but we haven't been able to have the success that MBIT has in updating the schools. Okay?
Who knows, PlanCom may come back.
Yep. Anything's possible, right? So, yes.
You have for next year, again, vans. What vans were you planning on purchasing? One more similar to what we had purchased, or?
I think at the time we talked about 2 more
Okay.
to fulfill Karen's van plan, if you will.
Right.
She was hoping to get to 5. But the vans are really practical and really efficient, right? They are driven by non-CDL drivers, so we do save a little bit of money there. They're a little more effective in these one-off rides, whether it's taking special needs students from their homes to their school, or it's just moving smaller groups of students who were still responsible for transporting.
Only because I noticed it's at 130,
Yep.
where we had expended approximately 100,000 per van.
Right,
So,
no, and
I
this
was wondering
was
if it was
before
one.
that. This was
Right.
before that, so we'll,
Might need to adjust
like
that.
like we talked about when we ordered the vans, right? We
was a
still
net.
stayed within the bus van total, right? We were under by $1,000, $1,428, right? So those numbers and this logic, I think these were in at 65 apiece to get to 195. So I think the 65 apiece gets you to 130 in our long-range plan.
Has there been any, or is it just still too soon to do any cost analysis yet to see how much the vans are saving us, 30 miles a gallon versus 10 miles a gallon? And
I don't. I will
just
make
curious.
a note of that. Yep.
yeah, I'm just kind of curious as
And,
to what the cost savings. I would think it'd be significant, especially with the cost of fuel being what it is, and wear and tear and maintenance on a large vehicle versus a smaller one.
Yeah. I mean, we've only had them in play for a couple of months, but we can certainly do some
Interesting to
sort
see.
of back of the envelope math that says, if they're both being driven 6 hours or 7 hours a day, I'm saving X every hour. If the mileage is this, as you referred to, right? I'm saving this.
It's
And I know
5
Karen
quarts
had
of oil versus
done that
12, and
in terms of her review when she brought that plan forward that the board approved, which was sort of creating that van driver position
Right.
and that van plan. Okay, before we didn't, we just had CDL drivers and aides. So I think that was a good move by the Transportation Department. Karen did a nice job in organizing those thoughts and bringing them forward. So I will make that note, and we'll carry that up. Okay. Last month, we also talked about insurance, in particular the commercial umbrella insurance. The Willis is our broker. They were unable to get a $20 million umbrella. The number the company just wasn't offering that. They were offering $15 million is the high number. And if you recall, the discussions were that next steps was to look at claims history, to reach out to our solicitor, as well as reaching out to our neighboring Bucks County districts to see if we are in the right place. And it would appear that we are. If we look at the history, we haven't had anything that pierced the $1 million number, much less a $15 million, knock on wood. Thank you very much, Mr. Hartline. That would be an issue, right? If we look at our neighboring communities, we are, it ranges from $7 million at Middle Bucks to $15 million is the high. No one is at that $20 million coverage. And when talked about with the insurance folks, right, they see these things would have to be a sort of transportation calamity that would take you into that stratosphere. And in there's a lot of rules and process that could impact any court hearing. And lastly, I did trade messages with our solicitor. He says it's obviously the board's decision to make, but based on what he has seen and based on our conversation, he thinks that is a fine instance to go to, right? So we want to address that and move forward. So, any further thoughts on that?
I'm thinking 15. I mean, the cost difference between 10 million and 15 million was not significant, if I remember correctly.
No, and I wasn't
Large
looking
picture.
to, I was looking to avoid the bump, right?
Right.
So the extra cost, as we talked about last
with
week,
the-
was to get an additional $5 million. It was going to be $16,000 to
Right.
get that extra coverage, right? And trying to understand, hey, is that something that we were interested in doing with CM Regent? We would go out and I think there was Green Company had proposed an offer to have another layer of that umbrella. But it would seem, based on what we're looking at, that 15,000 is probably a good enough number. We don't, we want to lead in academics. We want to lead in athletics. We don't necessarily want to lead in insurability, right? I'm not looking to have the best umbrella policy, right? I'll take the cheapest, but certainly all those things come into cover.
Never hurts to be a little overinsured.
Yep. No. You never. You hope, as you said, right, that we don't need it, but it certainly seems like we are properly insured, right? A number of the other schools around there are much larger schools. Central Bucks, Council Rock is at 10, right? Bristol Borough is larger than we are. Ben Salem is slightly larger than we are. New Hope, Solebury, Neshaminy. New Hope, Solebury is smaller than we are. Neshaminy is a little bit larger than we are. So those are districts transporting, the same or more children than we are.
Looking for a motion to keep it at 15,000 or 15 million?
Yeah, I think that would, if we could do
I'll
that,
make
is
it.
that something that we should
Well, I'll
bring
be
to the
more
board
happy
and
to second
acknowledge
that.
that?
Yep, I'll make it.
Second it.
Mr.
Okay.
Goddickson seconded. Thank you. Thank you for the research.
Sure. We have we'll have these informational items that will be a part of the presentation. So for approval, we have four things for approval. We're going to be looking for the adoption of the budget development calendar, which we just looked at. There is a bid that was out for video services as part of our graduation run, if you will. So that is on the docket to be approved, as well as our graduation equipment. Zio Group, I think, provides the audio support for that. Lastly, we have tax collector compensation. So we need to put forth and to agree to a new 4-year agreement with our tax collectors. You can see the last 2 years, this year and next year, in terms of what we are paying them today. We pay a combination of a salary as well as a per item charge for interim taxes and installment payments. So that's the makeup of our tax collector fees. The salary piece was sort of determined a while back and has sort of stayed in place really just based on the size. So Warminster, you can see Upper Southampton, Ivy Land Borough, that top group is a salary payment. You can see what each of those equal. And then you can see the change and then the percent change over this period of time. And then there's items below, which are the per item charges. The IU is looked at and we've shared information. There is a mixed pot. There is this combo method that we employ, which is partial salary, partial per unit charges. Some are just all strictly per piece. I've been working with Linda Finelli, as Ms. Loftus is going to be resigning at the end of the month. So the Warminster School District, the Warminster area, will have an assigned tax collector to cover for that. So I'm really, Linda's really the key. She's the only one who has been voted in, so I've really relied on her and her feedback. She had a slightly lower increase number, sort of carrying that 2.5 across. I thought given what we've done in the district, if we had a 3% increase at 2.75 and then at 2.5 the last 2 years, it seemed like a fair number, and an increase in the per item charge from 325 to 350 was the other option that I wanted to explore with you guys and get your feedback. The number of interims has been declining over the past several years, as you can see. It was a high, in FY22 we had 121 of them. This most recent year we had 74 of them. It certainly could be a product of the economy, but I thought that would get done. Probably actually coming out of COVID now, as we think about it, right? Everyone was booming to do projects at the home when they were locked in those houses for that period of time. So,
do we know what the total numbers would be when you're looking at 350 per parcel?
The 350 isn't per. Those are only for interims and installments,
okay,
right? So for the real estate tax bills, that part of the process is covered in their salary. They don't get anything else,
Okay,
right?
all right.
So we have a mix. As I said, some districts have the mix like we do. Some just pay a flat rate, and that rate ranges. 350 for interim seems to be about the middle spot. There's a couple below, there's a couple above. At 325, we were sort of on the lower end. And I think that, so those are only, so the interim 350, if you add 100 of them, right, it's $350, right? So it's not a big number.
I say, and if I remember correctly, we have to do this by law prior to their,
We do,
We
right?
have to set this.
Before they have to run, they have to be able to know what they are
right.
running for, right? What their compensation would be, so.
Now, do we provide any additional assistance as far as mailing or paperwork or?
We don't, right?
Okay.
We don't. We we obviously pay for the postage, we pay to have those things printed and sent out, right? This is really their service,
Gotcha.
okay?
Yeah, they're really, I guess, technically independent contractors.
They are.
Yeah.
Yep, under our supervision.
Right.
Right, so that has them sort of,
Is there any additional, do they receive any additional compensation should there be, and we're kind of landlocked, so I know that's not going to really happen, but
Right.
for my own edification, a building boom or something were to take place?
there is not.
There's not,
I
okay.
mean, not in place today.
Gotcha.
Not in the current rate, it would fall under, right, if we had a housing developments have come up, we've, added 20 houses here. If you remember back to the
Like the hardest
enrollment
building.
survey that we had
Yeah.
done last spring, right? That gentleman, I forgot his name, but called out pockets, right? There are sort of pocket communities now that are being built that are, 3, 4, 5 houses. Nothing
There's
like.
not an awful lot of
a big
land
blowout.
to,
There's-
farmland
We
to
are
convert.
pretty well built out.
Yeah, I say, we're not going to see too many more like the
Right.
hardest buildings
And
that
this is
have
only,
hundreds of.
a component of the taxpayer's job, right? So the school district is a client of theirs, as is the county,
I
right?
mean, we will.
And the local.
We will see in Southampton because Beth Anna, which was a fairly large
Yeah, that's a
property,
large tract.
is being converted now to townhouses.
Oh, wow.
So that'll be interesting.
Where is that?
Second Street Pike,
Second Street Pike?
between Bristol and Street Road.
Oh, really?
So down the road, I mean, up the hill from Klinger.
I
Okay.
think it's like 150 some townhouses, that's.
That's good
Is it on the
size.
same side of the street as Klinger?
Opposite,
Opposite, yeah.
Opposite
Yeah,
side.
they're basically almost like straight across from.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
A little bit up.
Okay.
Maybe a mile up the
A
road.
little closer towards Street Road.
Okay. All right. I never come from street up. I come,
On the-
either
yeah.
come through, it's at Maple,
Mhm.
I believe, right? Or I
Yeah,
come
you
down
take-
You'd make the
Bristol.
right on Maple, right on Second Street Pike off of Maple,
Yeah.
right past the
You
church,
miss
it's
it.
right there.
Got it.
Yep, past the cemetery, yeah.
Okay.
It's a big tract of land.
Okay.
Do you
So
need a
those are
motion
the
for this
four
as well?
items that we will want to bring forward. Does anyone have any questions first on the
I'm okay with
compensation?
it.
If not, I will meet with Linda and discuss that with her and get her feedback. And we'll then present that to this group.
You want a motion to move all four
Yep,
of these
if
forward
you-
to the school
If
board?
you could,
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you.
all right. Brings us to the end. Does anyone have any questions, any feedback, any thoughts?
I don't mean to keep my back to you.
No, I don't have any.
I don't have any. Thank you very much. I
All right.
greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, if there is none, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, thank you. And the next date is already on the calendar, I believe. We do
The
not
next-
meet in
our next
December.
meeting is January 16th,
Right, yeah, we
right?
do not
There
meet
is
in December.
an organization meeting, and then there's a business meeting in December. So our next January will be our next committee of the whole meeting.
Our next finance meeting.
Our next finance meeting, yes,
Okay,
and tied to the committee of the whole meeting.
all right, gotcha. All right. Well, thank you very much. You have a question?
Well, are there any substantial increases, on the broadcasting of the graduation?
I'd say, didn't seem like it.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's not a tremendous amount of money, so,
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't
Yeah.
really concerned, I was just,
yeah.
Yep.
It's hard to believe that we're already talking about graduation again.
Yeah, for sure.
I know.
Um,
Yeah.
Right, so they're increasing a little bit, right?
In line with what you would
It's so
expect.
small, it's
Yeah,
so
it's-
small
Yeah,
amount.
the contract is under 10,000, so it's,
Yep.
you know,
All right,
All right.
Yep.
good enough.
all right, thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right,